Welcome to Silver Lining for Learning. We're delighted today to be able to focus on the country of Turkey and the exciting things that are happening there. I'm hosting today. I'm Chris Dede from Harvard University. My co-hosts are Kurt Bonk from Indiana University and Punya Mishra from Arizona State University. And we're really excited to have with us Tuba Inyang and Fulden Ergen, who are leading some of the really interesting bottom-up work that's happening in Turkey. So I'm going to ask Tuba to spend a few minutes talking about what's happening, showing some slides, and then we'll go into some questions.
Yeah, I can start. Thank you so much for hosting us. We are really very excited to be here. My name is Tuba Inanç. I'm from Turkey, as you already mentioned, and my career has started as a biologist. And I did my master's degree in molecular biology here in Turkey, in Ankara. Then I decided to have another master's degree in curriculum and instruction. And that's really changed my life. And I had this passion to change education system in Turkey. Since that time, I really have this urge to do something about education. And I worked as biology teacher for almost 5 years. Then I worked as project coordinator for the last 3 years, let's say. And what I did was basically to implement project-based learning in the Turkish education system. And I did this mostly in private schools. And I'm very happy to say that I launched my own company, Davinci Learning Academy, 2 months ago, to really just reach to more people, more teachers, and more students in Turkey. So, yeah, Chris, if you are asking what's going on in Turkey, I can answer that too. So, can you ask your questions? So I can go with that.
Yes, please tell us what's happening in Turkey in education and with the COVID, and then the things you're involved with trying to help.
Sure, yeah. I mean, we are really having bad times. This is one thing that I can say. Everybody is struggling with this remote learning system and education, let's say. But yeah, it's really tough times, and we were waiting for things to go back to normal for so long. And like last week, finally we learned that it's gonna be online for the next 3-4 months in Turkey. So now we didn't have this hope to go back to school. And this actually, like, kind of good part of this is like this helped us to change our mindsets a little bit. Like, we are in the process of mindset shift in Turkey, because what we understand, or what we understood, is we need to change things. Like our curriculum is mostly, let's say, teacher-centered. I can say that. It's a central curriculum that is like given by Ministry of National Education, and there are like objectives that we need to follow. There are like topics that we need to cover in a year. And it's kind of very strict, because at the end of grade 8 and at the end of grade 12, there are huge central exams that students need to take. So because of that, we need to follow this strict curriculum. And this kind of, so far, it's just, limited our creativity. But now, during this COVID time, we learned that now it's time to trigger creativity, to come up with different ideas, and to use more technology in a more meaningful way. So I can tell you, like, it's really bad times, but it's also a very good time to have this mindset shift in Turkey in general.
I know that you have some slides. Do you have some images you can show us about what things look like in Turkey?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, like first, today, Fulda and I, we really wanted to talk about education inequality in Turkey. This is why we wanted to use this picture here. Can you see like there is a west part of Turkey and east part of Turkey? So I just simply explain what's going on here. In the west part of Turkey, families are like more well educated, meaning that like most parents went to college, and if they go to college, it's very likely that they are gonna um, want to give the same or similar education to their students or to their children. But in the east part of Turkey, southeast and east part of Turkey, the profile or socioeconomic levels of parents are not super high comparing to the west part. So if parents are not like well educated, they are not likely to send their children to school, especially if they have girls. It's really like very um, impossible to a girl in the very east part of Turkey to go to school after grade 4. This map literally shows this. As you can see, Ankara, Izmir, and Istanbul, like the big cities, yeah, like more likely gender inequality are very less in those areas. But if you go to the east part of Turkey, you can see that gender inequality in education is very high. This is actually one thing that we wanted to show. And if you look at this, like those are like very good inspiring examples from Turkey. Like there are a lot of NGOs and a lot of other stakeholders who contributed on girls education in Turkey for the last 10 years. And this also shows that like there are people who are volunteered to go talk to their parents. There are people who just start a charity and collect money for these girls to go to school. So we had a lot of great campaigns and projects in Turkey who helped most of the girls who lives in the east part of Turkey to went to school and have great careers. This is one thing that I want to show, but I'm going to share the rest of the slide later, Chris. Let me.
That's fine. So Kurt, Punya, do you have questions? I have a question to start, and forgive my ignorance, but I haven't been to Turkey. So you talked about a big difference in socioeconomic status between the West and the East. Is there also major cultural differences or ethnic differences in those populations?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, there are a lot of ethnic differences in east part of Turkey and west part of Turkey. Like cultural differences is huge. Like even their diet, like our diet is different, and traditions. Like those people, like in east part of Turkey, generally they want to invest on their sons instead of their daughters, because son in that culture is the father of the family. He needs to work, he needs to have a good job, so he needs to go to college. But mostly daughters are like, they are the ones who needs to stay at home, take care of their children. So, and if you look at this way or in this perspective, you'll see that mostly sons, or let's say males, are advantaged to go to school in the east part. Yeah.
And so I'm reading if you haven't read the blog post in the audience, we've got a bunch of people in the audience. You might want to take a look at that because it's kind of interesting. When you mention the teacher network and the YouTube channels and other things that the teachers are creating through their own networks and sharing those, what are you doing to facilitate that? And what kind of ways do you recommend that other people might replicate that? Have you had a lot of take up, for instance, on teachers becoming more active and creating a podcast or a YouTube channel and sharing their resources and all that? Could you talk a bit about that?
Sure. I mean, Teachers are amazing, I think. Like they are the most important component of education system. And there are great teachers, like very open-minded, and they are actually facilitators instead of being a teacher. Like they have this mindset. And there are some teachers who are very into technology. They want to improve themselves. They follow, all kinds of examples all around the world. And yeah, some of them have their YouTube channels, and we have some conferences in Turkey. We have some networks, but it's not like very expanding all around the country because, like, mostly I can tell you that the teachers who improve themselves in their career is like they work in private schools in Turkey. And this is another inequality. Maybe we need to talk about it because schools, private schools, push their teachers so hard to improve themselves because parents' expectations are very high because they pay for the education. And yeah, I can tell you that it's mostly kind of closed groups, and they are mostly private school teachers. But I think Fulden can contribute on this comments. Like there are other teachers from public schools who really work so hard to share their good examples, to share their resources and materials too. But yeah, it's not like I can't tell you that we have a huge central teacher network that we can reach out all teachers. They're always like very limited groups.
There's pockets.
Yeah.
Now,
And
Poland,
even
I know that you've done a lot of work with training teachers, so we'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. To introduce myself, I am Fulden, and I work as communications specialist at Teachers Network. And if you ask what this Teachers Network is, this is simply a sustainable learning environment and ecosystem for teachers to collaborate with their colleagues and with stakeholders to education from different backgrounds, different disciplines. And if we say there is a need for teacher empowerment, as Teachers Network, we don't think it can be done by someone else in the name of teachers, but it should be the teachers themselves who come up with their needs and find their own solutions. So at Teachers Network, we try to provide necessary tools, methods, and processes for teachers to realize their potential, I would say. And we are supported by 6 pioneering foundations, I might say, and I would like to name them. One of them is Mother Child Education Foundation, Aydın Doğan Foundation, Enka Foundation, Mehmet Zorlu Foundation, Sabancı Foundation, and Vehbi Koç Foundation. These are all special names, so that's why I cannot translate into English. But these are leading foundations in Turkey that came together to support us. And we are very honored that we have the support of these foundations. And we are also run by Education Reform Initiative, which is an NGO who has been monitoring and advocating in the field of education since 2003. With this huge introduction to what Teachers Network is, we have been doing our work since 2018. And only in 2 years, I have seen a tremendous change in what we were able to accomplish. Pandemic, it forced us into something new that none of us knew about. And at first, we didn't know what to do. We looked at each other, but the instinct of us as facilitators in Teachers Network, we turned back to teachers and said, how are you? What do you need? What should we do to come up with solutions, with the needs for you? And since then, we started creating workshops and groups with the movement of teachers. And that showed us that inequality deepened worse. It got worsened during the time of pandemic. I mean, educational technologies rose as important tools to access education. Socioeconomical differences really worsened many families' economical situation, thus made children work child labor was needed for families to survive. So there have been various of problems. Immigrant kids, they could not access to education. There are language barriers as well. But in spite of all the hardships going on, teachers always came and said, no, we can do something. We should learn from each other. For instance, one of our teachers, Gökhan Atik, he said, you know what, we are gonna go back to schools and we are gonna have first grade kids. What are we gonna do with them? They don't have an idea of school. They don't even have the idea of school. So how can we approach them? And he formed a working group with his colleagues. Other group of teachers who are also familiar with design thinking processes, they came together and said, we are gonna go back to school, how are we gonna adapt to this new situation? And they came up with 15 different solutions, creative solutions, I might say. And they produced a booklet. And with this booklet, we hope that teachers were able to, have necessary tools when they first started schools. As well, Ministry of National Education's local branches helped us disseminate this booklet so we could reach more public school teachers. I also want to share a bit good examples with you of our teachers. I hope you can see my screen. So this is Semra from Denizli, and at the very first days of quarantine, she just walked around the neighborhood and said hello to her students and just waved from balcony. I hope you can see the joy in the face of kids as I see, and in face of Semra. And this is also another teacher who is doing Muppet Show. I came across this example on the website of Education Reform Initiative on a blog post. To make lessons more amusing, she is both using guitar and Muppets, which I think is an amazing idea. Also, this is newspaper for kids that is developed by our teachers in Teachers Network, and these are disseminated to kids. And all the content in this are gathered from different parts of Turkey. And there are different opinions, I would say. And also, this is what I find really interesting. This is a magnifying glass. And this is a teacher, and he's using this magnifying glass to zoom in when using his camera, when teaching. I think it is such a brilliant solution. And this is a picture from one of our teachers' YouTube channel, Gülay. She is a 55-year-old woman, and in her words, she didn't know much about digital world at all. First, she started to send voicemails through WhatsApp because even though Ministry of National Education gave 8 megabytes of internet for free, it is still not enough for kids to reach educational material. So Gülay first started to send stories over WhatsApp, but she said it was not enough for her because she lost that emotional connection, that social connection with her students. And she decided to launch a YouTube channel where she teaches her classes. Also, I think it's another YouTube channel, again, by a teacher in Teachers Network, Yasemin. And I love the name of the channel. It says, "The woman who doesn't understand from technology." And she is bringing together her students, and they are just chatting, sustaining that emotional connection that we all lack during pandemic. These are some of the examples I wanted to share, but besides these pictures, there are a lot more various of stories that I might share following this broadcast.
Thank you. Tugba, I want to just come back to something you said in the beginning, and I've had similar sort of, this has to do with the disparity with girls versus boys. And that's something where in India, there is this great, I mean, there's been great strides made over the past decade or two in bringing girls into the educational system. And there is sort of a sincere concern right now that we will lose like a generation of girls coming into the system because of the pandemic, because of all the reasons that you said. Can you speak to some of how that is being, I mean, is that clearly that is a similar challenge that I think Turkey is facing as well. And what are some things that are being done to try to address that? Because a lot of progress has been made, but like, is this pandemic actually going to push that progress back in many ways? And I'm sort of out of focus for some reason, so I'm going to jump off. I'm still listening and I'll try to fix the video.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I really wanted to be hopeful about this because like we had a great improvement over the last decade, let's say. And yeah, like now we are in a world that we try to prove that women and men are equal and they need to everybody needs to get a college degree in Turkey, by the way. It's different from the States because in Turkey, we believe that like if you don't go to college, you cannot have a proper job. So since we know this in our own system, and now like I feel like parents are more open to the idea of sending their daughters or like having them into the education system. But if the socioeconomic level is very low and if they need to choose one of their kids, and if the kid, like if they have one son and one daughter, I mean, I'm pretty sure that they're going to pick their son because of, if they don't have enough financial resources, whatever it is. But yeah, it is changing. And as Fulden mentions, like we have very amazing rich families in Turkey and education volunteers in Turkey who help to change this gender inequality, like not in education, but in work area, in all other platforms. So I really want to be very hopeful about it because like, I don't think that we can just ignore this improvement in Turkey because we are already in somewhere and we need to go further and further to reach our goals.
Yeah, thank you for that.
I also want to
Sorry, go
add to
ahead.
this question, Punya.
Sure, absolutely.
For a couple of decades, gender inequality in terms of accessing to education, I think it was a challenge we sort of overcame. It's not 100%. We are not there yet, 100%. But the focus should be on maybe smaller groups when it comes to gender inequality in education. For instance, there are 4 million immigrants in Turkey, and out of them, 1 million kids are at the age of school, but only 63% of them can go to school, for instance. There, we have challenges in terms of gender inequality. Also, when it comes to education for kids with special needs, there are less girls that can go to school than boys. As well as we know in the elementary level, participation to education is pretty much okay, but when you come to high school level, then it worsens because there is a risk of early marriages. I think the numbers say 1 girl out of 10. So we are not in the worst situation, but there is this non-visible child labor in the household as well. So gender inequality, I think, must be discussed in various levels because there are both improvements and some areas that still we need to go for.
Sure, thank you for that. And one of the things that I was told by when I was speaking to somebody in India, because the context, it sounded so similar, is that a poor family might have just one cell phone. And then if the cell phone has to be used for education, it goes to the boy rather than the girl. And so you are seeing that divide, which was already there. And that's what I meant when I said that a lot of improvement has happened over the past decades. but that this pandemic might be sort of pushing some of those reforms and positive things back. And that's sort of a real tragedy. And I think that significant attention needs to be paid to that, because that's a gap because once you're out of that process of learning, then going back to school, even when we do open, is going to be that much more challenging. So thank you for your, and I see there are some questions. So I don't know, Kurt, you're going next?
Yeah, I'll jump in. One of my doctoral students from Turkey, who's dissertating right now and studying 50 years worth of dissertations in Turkey about distance learning and e-learning, is actually she's doing a conceptual analysis of them. It's a fascinating study. She's interviewing many professors in Turkey right now. She's asked 2 questions, and her name is Merve Bastigan. And when I met Merve, I thought she was a very shy person, and she now has a YouTube channel teaching about new technologies to teachers in Turkey, exactly what you're trying to do. And when I watch them, even though I don't know a lick of Turkish, she's so animated and so creative and so energetic and passionate. She's not shy at all. I'm finding out. And she's using Animaker, which is a free tool. And if you'd like me to connect you to her, she would probably be very happy and excited to do a workshop or a training or some kind of, make some kind of connection, because she knows. She's got an undergrad in ed tech, a master's in ed tech, a doctoral in ed tech. She knows every tool. And in fact, she won the IU Global Citizen Video Competition a week ago, a $7,500 scholarship for a video at last week's Indiana University World's Fair. So Merve, I'm sorry to embarrass you there a little bit, but I have to. You're one of the most creative people I know. Merve's asked 2 questions, and can you talk about cultural and academic challenges for professional development of K-12 teachers in Turkey? She studied K-12 teachers here in Bloomington, Indiana, for the Indiana High School for her qualifying exam. Merve's also asked, I am wondering about the digital divide between public and private school teachers. Can you talk about their professional differences, if any? And I think you've alluded to both of those already, but maybe she's looking for an expansion or other things that you didn't have a chance to say. So take a shot.
Fulden, do you mind if I start?
No, not at all.
Okay. Hi, Mary. By the way, I hope we can meet in person. So yeah, like I worked as a teacher for more than 5 years, and like I know how it means to work in a private school. And my family members, like they work in public school, so I can compare these 2 profiles in terms of cultural and academic situation, let's say. So we have a couple of challenges in Turkey. For example, the first thing is like parents mostly see, or let's say in general profile, people see teachers as like people who works half day or like half of the week, and they have 3 months of summer vacations. And I mean, it's easy to be a teacher, and like if you wanna have a comfortable life, you should be a teacher. This is the first, I can say, impression about teachers. The second thing is in education faculties who train teachers, I can tell you that we are very qualified in that area, because mostly academicians are like people who have never been in a classroom, in a real classroom, and who didn't like have chance to teach like primary school teachers or secondary school students. Sorry. This is the second problem. And the third problem is in most schools, teacher trainings like cannot be seen as an investment of our future. But the main thing is like there is no education system in the world that is like, better than its average teacher. So I can tell you that in Turkey, we are not very good at teacher trainings in general. And once they go to their own school, as I mentioned before, since we have this central curriculum, which is like mostly knowledge-based curricula, let's say, it is very difficult to a teacher to be creative, you know, to improve 21st century skills of students, to collaborate with other disciplines and departments, because like they're so strict: maths, science, social studies, Turkish. And so there are a lot of challenges, and teachers really need to be very ambitious and strong and rich, let's say, to have a proper training during and after, let's say, their education. And yeah, there are a lot of teachers who sees this as a lifelong learning process, so they improve themselves. But our other challenge is the language barrier. Most of the things that you find in Google or YouTube are in English. They're amazing resources. I can tell you that, like, you can be a great teacher from scratch if you follow certain websites. Like, they're really amazing resources. But since there is a language barrier, they couldn't go through that websites or YouTube channels and to learn more or to improve themselves. So yeah, like if they really want to do it, they need to pay. They need to go to different conferences. They need to find time, but you know, everything is super hectic in education world. So yeah, I can tell you those are the challenges, and there are still amazing teachers who wants to like improve for themselves and for their learners, but it's really like very, very tiny, you know, amount of people that can improve themselves in this whole situation.
You got me wondering how the heck Merve survived, because she's the most creative type. We'll have to do a single case study of her and try and publish that, because she was a creative output of the Turkish system, if there ever was one. And again, you need to meet her. Thank you for that. Who wants to go next?
I want to go next for the same question, if it's okay.
Yeah.
I have a slightly different perspective, I think, on this specific issue. Maybe because I'm surrounded with teachers who are doing amazing jobs. I believe it is not as few as we think it is, because the thing is, there is no vocational law in Turkey. So teachers in K-12 education, they are under different circumstances. In private schools, their performances are tracked. So it is a different burden than what teachers experience in public schools, where usually the environment is not as encouraging as it is in private schools. And because there is no vocational law, the difference, it's not likely to close in closer time, but there is a hope. Also, the Minister of National Education said that the law is getting prepared. So there is a hope in the future. But in Teachers Network, what we see is we have 70% of the teachers joining the network are from public schools, whereas 30% from private schools. This might be read in two different ways. One can say teachers in public schools don't have much space, so they rush and go into these networks. But also, there is this motive that moves people towards these kind of collaborative spaces, I would like to add.
So I want to shift gears a little and talk about students. My colleague Bob Nelson asks what the technology infrastructure is like that students have access to in their homes and neighborhoods in terms of mobile devices, for example, or internet connection. And I know that may be different in different parts of the country.
Yeah, Chris, you have already replied. Yeah, it's really very huge inequality area. Again, I think like there are some kids who has, you know, iPhones, iPads, like MacBooks, and there are some kids who don't have anything, and they need to use their parents' cell phones, or like they need to watch the, you know, TV channels that are done by Ministry of National Education. So yeah, it's a huge gap And if you are gonna ask the percentage of this, I don't have like exact numbers, but I mean, like in the most part of Turkey, students are struggling from having either the tool or the connection.
So let me ask a question about models, because one of the things that we like to talk about on this show is whether there's a model that they're using that could be adapted to be used in other countries. And I'm hearing a lot of bottom-up initiatives and a lot of creative teachers coming together and working hard to, not only to educate kids, and I love the Muppets. I would try it with my own students, except my dean probably wouldn't be too thrilled. And also to helping other teachers. So you say that started really in 2018. What were the ways that you were able to get that going?
Yeah.
If I'm in another country and I want to get the creative teachers together and have them start networking with one another and forming a community of practice, what are some of the things I might try doing?
Yeah, so the foundations of the network goes back to 2015 because there was research run by Education Reform Initiative on the conditions of teachers and how they feel like, and that showed that teachers do not only need professional growth but also a personal growth, a way to empower themselves in a wholesome point of view. So because the network itself stems from teachers' needs, I think this is what makes teachers' network quite lively as it is right now. And teachers' network is open to collaboration from anyone that is interested, even within Turkey or from outside of Turkey. And we are also very, very willing to tell how a network works so that in different places of the world, other teacher groups can come up with their own networks. And we try our best to report this and document this and share it as much as we can. So I would be glad if there would be another session or opportunity to talk about these models. But what we do essentially in Teachers Network, we always say we don't give any lessons, we don't do any workshops. We have tools. We consider yourself in a forest and you need to have one backpack. What do you have in that? You have to have creative problem solving skills, critical thinking skills. You need to have the knowledge and the experience. So we try to build up that bag with teachers, I would say. So I think this is what makes us maybe a bit different than NGOs or other institutions.
So if I can jump in here, is that okay, Chris? So one of the questions, this is something from one of our audience members. And in fact, I just have a piece written about it, which is hopefully published soon. And it makes the argument that in this new situation that we have to think about the role of parents and caregivers differently and actually bring them in some ways into that educational conversation. So as a silver lining of this, because kids are now at home, that can we see that itself as an educational resource, which typically what we have done is, right, we have said, you leave at this time in the morning and you go to this little building and that's where learning happens. And then you come back and that's not learning anymore. Even though you are learning, I mean, as a child, you are learning all the time, but we have sort of defined this formal shape of learning as being in a classroom or in a school. While what this pandemic might do is actually open that can up a little bit and see the local community or the parents as being part of the educational resources available to the child. I don't know if there have been any thoughts or efforts in that space.
Okay, as a parent, I can tell you it's really super challenging to have a 10-year-old at home, like there is no emotional connection between his teachers and his friends. And I mean, he cries sometimes. I'm like, what's going on? What am I going to do? And, you know, I'm part of the education for so long. And I mean, the first thing that we need to be aware is that, like, the key is autonomy. In the classroom, in the living room, in the kitchen, and outside, like in every, like, let's say, learning platform. So since, like, as parents or as teachers, we would like to control the kids. And I think now in this situation, our kids like wants us, their parents, to control them, to tell them just sit down, write, read, do this, do that. And like, it's very difficult to get this commands from screen, but they really require some person next to them to tell them what to do. And if like we can manage to shift the things from like control by someone to self-control, I think this could be the key to have like a great, you know, remote learning system or process. So, and I think parents finally see how difficult it is to be a teacher, to be a student, and they see like different parts of this education system, like exams, like the load of curriculum. And I think they really need to be part of the system from the beginning. But, you know, we mostly just keep them out of the classroom, out of the school, because, you know, they cannot just have any right to say anything. And if they try to investigate or ask questions, it's another challenge for the school administrator and teachers. But now we really need to collaborate. It's time for collaboration. It is time for meaningful communication, because here we are talking about our learners. They are our future. And yeah, we really need to collaborate. This is what I can say.
I'll jump in. I noticed in the blog post that you're the director and co-founder and CEO of Davinci Learning Academy. Yeah. Sitting next to me in my car for the next book I have to listen to is Leonardo da Vinci by Walter Isaacson. So I have a two-part question. The easy part's the first part. Have you read the book and do you recommend it? The second part is going back to Chris's question about principles, about the foundations. Two parts on that too. To what degree are you building this academy from Da Vinci point of view? How are you wording your mission statement and so forth? And are you finding that times during the pandemic make it easier for you to try out some of those things, to try out some of your ideas that you might have seen be a little risky at 6 months ago or a year ago or 2 years ago or when you first thought of them, but now today, do you find that you're able to take that risk and that jump? And what are those jumps? What are those risks that you're taking, and have those been successful? So. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Kurt. This is my past topic that I want to talk about.
Hey!
Yeah, Da Vinci is in our blood, so I can tell you, I haven't read that book, but I read How to Think Like Da Vinci. And there are 7 principles of Da Vinci that we directly implemented in Da Vinci Learning Academy. I mean, I can tell you some of those, like curiosità, like in Italian. And so we are curious. And if we are curious about something, if we are able to relate something with ourselves, we can learn, right? So let's start from this one. So we think that the education system needs to be constructed on this 7 Da Vinci principles. Why? Because Da Vinci is a great role model for everybody. Like he's not just like an artist or let's say doctor or philosopher, like whatever he is, but he is everything in one body. And we really very eager to tell or share this with everybody that our students can be whatever they want. And in our education system, we classify them as like, this student is very good at math, this is very good at science, this is very good at art, but they can be very good at everything because those disciplines are together. So we need to see education as a holistic learning model or environment that needs to empower students to, let's say, achieve in every kind of situation. We need to like help them to prepare in anything, to real life problems and to improve their 21st century skills. And one of this is like flexibility, adaptability. Like this is something lack in adults, like how difficult it was to stay at home, to change our learning system, to change our life, everything. Like if it's uncertain, it gives us anxiety because we are not prepared for this. So we really need to help our students to be well-rounded, empowered people who actually achieve their full potential and whatever that potential is without classifying them, without labeling them. So yeah, we actually use all principles of Davinci. And for us, it was really challenging time, but it was also an opportunity because me and my two other partners, we really wanted to transform the education, not change, but transform. And transformation is very difficult and change is also very difficult. And for so long, we are training teachers in the schools that we worked for, but it was very difficult to change their mindsets about this system needs to be changed. Because they always like put themselves, most teachers put themselves in the center of the classroom, and they actually steal the role of the learner. And we really fought for this for so long, and we said that you cannot steal the role of the student. There is no teaching, there is learning. And they were like, they were not there yet. But now this COVID-19 showed us that we really need to change the system. And so even if it is challenging for us, but we see this as a huge opportunity, finally, mindsets are like shaking and we can really shift them from traditional system or mindset to learner-centered.
So you said flexible, curious, adaptable, empowered, multidimensional, and transformative. Did I miss anything?
There are more.
Oh, I'm sure there are more. Okay, I'm glad to hear there are more. Is this written up anywhere in English that you can share with us?
Yeah, like right now I don't have, but if you want, I can send it later. And it's if like people are curious about Da Vinci, I really suggest them to read the book, How to Think Like Da Vinci. This is like my holy book.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, I got you. Thank you.
So I just had a quick follow-up. I mean, there was so this is for both of you, but it'll be different for each of you because when you answer it, because this is like more like a personal, both of you come from outside of education into education. So Tugba, you come in from sort of your biology background into education. And there was this one quote in the blog post there, which is beauty in the balance of opposition. And I just wanted to understand better what you mean by that. And second, Fulden, you come at it from actually a political science background. So I'm just curious to so you're two people, and you can see one of the comments from one of our listeners who praises all of you and says that it's people like you who can actually make transformation happen. So clearly people are inspired by what you are sharing here. So I'm just curious about this, which is this sort of quasi-outsider status coming into education and bringing these different perspectives in. And Fulden, maybe you could start and then we'd go to Tugba. And I really want to understand this beauty and balance of opposition piece that you wrote there. So Fulden, please.
Thanks. I think my whole life, my whole professional life was in civil society. So I'm not unfamiliar with what is going on in the field of education, but it's been shocking how much there is in the field of education since I started working. I had no idea it was this diverse. There were this many problems and possibilities at the same time. So I'm very, very excited to have a deeper understanding of education. But as Tuba said, I want to refer to what she said. There is going, since the start of pandemic, there is a paradigm shift. And with that, we need to rethink, all of us, our roles within the education system, because it's not the same as we are used to. Being a teacher means now being an enabler to access of education. Being a parent now means an ally to a teacher. Being a student now is not only about sitting at a desk, but also having this, as Tuba said, autonomy and self-growth as well. And schools are not schools anymore, because on the one hand, we understood how important schools were, because without them, we lost the ground, and that is why teachers had to fill the void in education system during the pandemic. But it also showed us there are different alternative learning spaces that we can build from scratch. So I think this is, when we are talking about this, I prefer to use not education feature, but futures education, because we always think in the same paradigm and try to maybe build up something on another. But we need to change from where we look, I guess, I believe, and really play with the dynamics of the system. I hope this is an answer to your question.
Thank you. Thank you. Tugba?
Okay, where should I start? Like, beauty of a position. Do you want to hear what it means? Like as a biologist, as a nature lover, when I observe the universe, the earth, the globe itself, like there is winter and summer, yin and yang, black and white, fails and improvements, right? So this is what I see in beauty of a position. Everything, like we cannot like go very stable. And I believe that we can learn from our mistakes. So we can learn from our downs to go up. Like, so I feel like as a human being, as a part of this nature, this earth, we cannot just only support one thing, and we cannot just be one-dimensional. There are other perspectives that we need to embrace, and there are a lot of beauty that we need to see as a challenge, but to overcome that challenge. So this is what I meant by that. And yeah, as you said, I started my career as a biologist, but then I had my son, like I started my PhD and I had to quit because I thought that, like, how can I spend hours and hours in the lab doing experiments, because I'm a mother now. It's in my culture and tradition, let's say. So then I said, like, what can I do? Like, I still want to help people. I still want to like realize my own self, but I still want to take care of my child. So I said, let's just go into education and see what happens. So, and I feel very lucky because I was able to correlate and connect social studies with science. And like this helped me to see education in a very different way. Like, it's not just for me, it wasn't just like, some source of like a person who gives the knowledge, but I see it as a science experiment. I see it as a, like when you see the improvements of your students, when you see the change in teachers when you see how you can just manage to come up with different ideas to overcome that challenge. It's like, for me, science and education, they're like all together connected, and it helps me to see education system in a totally different way.
So we're getting towards the end, but I want to make sure that we cover one part of the system we haven't talked about much. And Forden, I know that you talked about the importance of the philanthropic foundations that are supporting you. And I get the feeling that a lot of the resources right now are really bottom up, or they're philanthropic. You haven't really talked much about universities, and you haven't talked much about the government. Do you feel as if there's starting to be some movement in the universities towards helping with innovation, and some movement in public policy towards helping these initiatives?
Mm-hmm. Well, I would start with saying, in Turkey, people donate, but it's not necessarily human rights based. It's more like with the need of helping. So that is why it has not been sustainable yet. But I think it's been improving. There is more human rights approach, and also it's not always about central resources, but also local resources that we try to connect with, because it's not possible anymore to look for one institution and ask for their help. It's not happening. The problems are very complex, and we all have a role in it. So that's why we also try to create local resources and resources within the network. We always say we try to bring the needs and sources together, because also teachers are sources themselves. They can share their expertise as a resource, but these are undercovered areas, I might say. When it comes to, in terms of philanthropy, I don't feel like I am the best person to talk about it, but I see more and more we look at collective impact than what we do on our own. And it's a developing nature, I would say.
Tuba, do you have anything to add about that?
Yeah, I think we are about to close up. Okay, so yeah, I want to say something. We talk about the future of education, and this is the whole idea of this platform, right? So I believe that there is no future, there is now, and we really need to start to change things right now, right here. This is all I want to say. And if there is anyone who wants to collaborate, who wants to help us, or who wants help from us to change anything in Turkey or beyond, please just contact us. This is all I want to add on this.
Well, I really appreciate that. And Folden, I was very impressed when you said the teachers outside of the Turkey could become part of the teachers network. Obviously, there are language issues potentially, but I think that's great, because there's no point in every country reinventing the wheel bottom up.
Exactly.
When there's so much that we can share with each other. And that's one of our goals on this program. So this has been very inspirational. And I just really want to thank you both for what you do and for coming here to share this with us. Kurt, do you want to talk about next week?
Yeah, next week we'll be back at the normal time, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Join us for a show that will feature Puerto Rico. They've not only had to deal with COVID, but they've dealt with catastrophes with earthquakes, tropical storms, hurricanes, and corruption, educational corruption. In fact, Minister of Ed was just arrested by the FBI. So we'll hear all these C words: catastrophes, corruption, COVID, and in the Caribbean. And we'll have a robotics instructor and an award-winning poet along with an educational technologist who got his degree at Michigan State and may have been trained by Yang Zhao and by Punya Edgar Leon. So we'll have a Michigan State influence there. It'll be I think it'll be a really interesting show because if they have had any successes, it is a real silver lining. If some success has happened with what's occurred with the loss of internet, kids, teachers not being allowed to use mobile, we'll hear about that. And that was the only way kids could learn for a while in Puerto Rico. And a draconian educational system, no less. So if they can overcome that, we can all overcome the barriers that we have. So I welcome everyone to attend again at the normal time next week. So thanks a lot. And you guys have been great.